Hello, hello, hello. Excuse me. Hello again, and welcome to Monday Musings. This week we're going to be talking about introspection and embracing your personal power. So before we get started, I just want to remind y'all of a few things. Feel free if you're catching it live to go ahead and comment. I'll see if things pop up. If they don't, I'll answer them as soon as I'm off and everything's uploaded. Also, feel free to just comment afterward. Make sure that you do like hashtag replay or something so that I catch when you're viewing it, just so that I get an idea. And also, feel free to share your feelings. Like, this is the space where you can get vulnerable if you like and talk about your own experiences. That's how we learn, share, and heal, right? Also, if you're looking for deeper unpacks, affirmations, or mindfulness practices, definitely join the Authenticity Ignited group. We often share a lot of things there, but also the Patreon. The Keeper of the Old Ways Patreon also has a lot of really, really great information that you can find that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else on my social media. So, also remember to like, follow, share. And the more that you share with other people, the more that this kind of information gets in front of the people that need it the most. All right. So, as we get started, I just want to remind you that some of these topics can be fairly heavy, and introspection can be one of those things that feels a lot like shadow work, and it can, but it's the way that we build self-awareness, right? Um, it allows us to embrace our personal power because we start identifying some of our patterns, um, and unpacking thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and also identifying our strengths and weaknesses, right? Areas of growth where we can start to work on and then harness the power and amplify all of our unique abilities moving forward, right? So, and it's so important that with the introspection and the self-awareness, the identifying of those patterns, you know, whether it's triggers, whether it's negative self-talk that has been holding us back, all of those things start becoming, like a rope or a blanket, a wet blanket holding us down. Those limiting beliefs start like really becoming a dampener on our lives, right? And by breaking free, we're able to take charge and become the co-creator of our lives and really become in the influencer of our narrative, right? Because we so often feel out of control. We so often feel like we don't have a say in our own lives, right? And that's totally a lie. We definitely have free will, and we have to also deal with the consequences of any of our choices, both good and bad, right? Introspection also helps us with emotional intelligence because it can examine our emotional responses and show us where maybe we have chinks in our armor, so to speak, so that we are not able to have as much resilience because things are starting to come through. And through this, it actually helps with improving our relationships as well. Because when we start having emotional intelligence and able to really like navigate some of the more difficult, stressful situations in our life, everything starts to improve, right? And through that, we also start improving our decision making skills as well. We start finding things that are more incongruent and authentic to ourselves. And it through this, we start learning how to honor our values, tap into our passions, and through that, then we can have longer term goals instead of just like living purely in the moment. Then maybe we start taking advantage of getting into certain communities or making certain connections that if we get started now, by the time we're ready to start doing things that take a little bit more um, trust in a community, like you're teaching or you're facilitating, this can really help with that. So, all of your decisions, you don't have to think of them as every single decision I've made has led me to this point. It can, but, some things just, don't worry about a lot of the major outcome on some of these things because our life happens for us, not to us. So even if something isn't fully in alignment or it was just for pure fun or something like that, then we also need that play in our life. We don't need to constantly be in this like work mode brain and every decision is toward our greater good, right? You also have to have life experiences and relaxation time and stuff like that. So remember that as you go forward with this introspection and you know the next tab I have written down is self-acceptance. So that's part of it, instead of like trying to overly control your life by making all of your decisions count and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. You need flexibility. You need to be able to go with the flow. And all of that really starts with self-acceptance. We've been talking about that a lot because if we don't fully acknowledge and embrace our full selves, all of the imperfections, all of the fun, loving, exuberant things that might be too much for people, all of those things are actually part of your inner strength. But we've been taught so long that we must fit into a certain box by society, fit into societal standards that we often dampen our potency within the world and what we have to share, right? So keep that in mind also. We were talking about how emotional intelligence is important to improving relationships. It also can help in conflict resolution because you're able to immediately feel in your body when something's triggering you and choose. You can choose the high road or you can choose the low road. That one's completely up to you. But once you start learning and figuring out, okay, I'm starting to feel anxious because this person did this one thing. Be direct and, say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. This is what I'm feeling in my body, or something like that. And sometimes it may be this is part of, gauging how relevant broaching a subject is going to be with whoever you're talking to. This situation way better than anybody else can. So you can choose to decide, hey, this person, I'm wasting my breath if I try to educate them. Or, this might be a teaching moment. Often when we're in triggered situations, it's not the best time for educating anybody, especially if the other person's triggered. You're just going to be wasting your breath. So keeping that in mind. Um, Also, as you practice introspection, you're going to start feeling empowered because you're starting to understand your beliefs, your values, your desires, and start overcoming the obstacles that are keeping you small. And that way you can confidently pursue your dreams and fully embrace your personal power, right? And within that, we we're talking about decision making. This leads to us having the ability to learn, lifelong learn. Um, because if we ever stop learning, we kind of stop, right? So, you know, this lifelong learning creates growth and evolution and transformation in our body. And without deep introspection, we'll just be going off willy nilly and, you know, doing whatever classes. They might not be fully aligned. They might not be in the community that we want to be in. So that is really important, which all leads to being able to live in abundance, fulfillment, and with purpose, right? So let's go back over those. We have introspection helping with self awareness because it helps us identify patterns. And it also helps with self acceptance, right? So that we have personal empowerment, which then leads us to continue to be able to pursue lifelong learning in what really lights us up, right? And through all of that, we're identifying patterns that also help us with emotional intelligence, that improve decision making, lead to better conflict resolution, and improve relationships. What more do you want, right? So when you start moving into this, you know, everything starts falling into alignment. And that's what the true power of, trusting and embracing, trusting the universe and the divine has your back, and fully embracing your own personal authenticity, because all of this will lead you as you start living a purpose driven life and becoming the co creator of your life. And that means that you have even deeper impact in whatever that you're trying to do. So, I wanted to give you a couple of steps of how you can practice introspection. That, and we'll tie that into how to embrace your power as well. So, one of my favorite practices is daily journaling. If you practice or have followed the Julia Cameron books with The Artist Way, you know that morning pages are huge within that. Not only is it getting all the gunk out and sort of like unburdening your brain, it's also allowing you to sort of reflect and see patterns in your life, whether it's, if you're a bleeding person, you're in the female category and you have cycles. And each month you start seeing this pattern come up with where your emotions lie, or where you don't feel as exuberant and you're feeling more like you need to hermit or something like that, or when you have more energy, right? And it also gains insight as if you're writing down dreams and stuff like that, because those can also give us a lot of insight into what we're psychologically experiencing, if that makes sense, because the symbolism that we experience through the imagery in our dreams can often reflect what we're dealing with in real life. If you're surrounded by chaos and out of control, tornadoes might come up. You might be fighting a lot of things. It is really interesting how deep certain dream aspects can really get. So, second is mindfulness meditation. And remember, meditation and mindfulness don't always have to be sitting on a pillow with your legs crossed and breathing. That's one of the deepest practices, but it could be mindfully drawing. It could be mindfully taking a walk. There's a lot of really different ways of practicing meditation and mindfulness that don't require sitting still, which I understand is completely difficult for some people like myself. But once you start sitting in that silence, and acknowledging what thoughts pop in, um, it can really, really help you to start processing through some of the self-awareness and the introspection and everything. And what I like to do is if I'm getting a lot of negative self-talk or I'm getting a lot of downloads or something like that, I just have a journal off to the side to where if I need to make a note of something super important I don't want to forget, I can, and then return back to that space. If things are just like negative self-talk or whatever, catch it, and you can, in that moment, immediately switch it into a more positive, a more affirmation type thing, and then release it and move on, or just brush it away. Either way works. Emotional check-ins. This could be throughout a day, or weekly, and the daily journaling, like I was saying, will start identifying the cycles that you go through so that you see what emotions are coming up most often. But this also goes way broader than that because you can start seeing where you need to take more time and have more ease in your life or set up boundaries. Then having self-reflective questions, I provide different prompts and stuff like that throughout the month that are really helpful for processing some of these things. So, like, what am I grateful today? What is my inner critic telling me? What is this energy or this anger actually trying to tell me? What am I mad about? And what can it fuel? What change can it fuel? What action can it fuel? Those type of self-reflective questions. And, it may be as simple as, where am I feeling this tension in my body? And then just sending some, warm, glowing love energy, healing breath into that area of the body. But by identifying where we're holding the tension may also tell us deeper meanings of what we're experiencing, what we're holding on to. Also, always seek feedback. This can be from trusted friends, mentors. They can often see aspects of ourselves that we're missing. And that's why I love working with clients one-on-one and seeing their breakthroughs and the aha moments and stuff like that. There's been some really great ones happening. People picking up painting after 3-something years and, really huge boost of confidence. People starting to ask, is this really my life? Because, it seems like everything's starting to fit into place and stuff like that. And those are the stories that I love to hear. But before that, we often have to get down in the ditch together and dig the trench, because oftentimes we're so close to ourselves that we start gaslighting and covering up some of the situations. And so having an outside perspective can often help with that. So all of these are really excellent ways to practice introspection, and they work to help us embrace our power because they help us identify our core strengths, and they also, you know, maybe are not so strengths, some of the icky stuff, you know. But by writing down reviews or um compliments people give you and stuff like that, it helps build confidence and embrace your personal power because it creates a foundation that if we're having a low day, we have all this evidence that we're this, we're amazing and we are talented and we have so much to offer the world. And so by identifying those strengths, you know what to start working toward. Maybe you are a great teacher, but you don't necessarily have an age range, like maybe you work better with kids or K through third grade and you don't like working with teenagers or you like working with adults and not, grade school students and stuff like that. Those are so important to have so that you can live in integrity and you can live in congruency, right? And then we also start seeing what we have issues with so that we can start setting boundaries, whether this is around personal or professional relationships. It could be, where we're expending energy and we're not, our self worth is being degraded because the people around us aren't honoring our needs and our emotions and stuff like that, and it's a very abusive type toxic situation. Um, and it just, once you start identifying what some of the core boundaries are that you need to improve, this can really help you start embracing your power. One of the things that I like to remember people is when you start putting boundaries on certain people, they will start acting out because they feel like that they're losing control of you and your attention, and they're going to start feeling left out. If they're a good person, if they're a good friend, they will understand once you say, "Hey, I'm practicing setting boundaries. This is for self-love. I have to do this myself." Other times you get hit with rebuttal from your bosses or people in a higher power than you. This could be in family relationships too. And if they are unwilling to talk about the situation and exactly what things that need to change for you to have an improved workplace or experience in the relationship, then it's probably best that y'all just split ways. Or you limit your time with that person, if that makes sense. It can often be difficult. I completely understand. But those are some of the things that I work with clients with because this can be so, so important to protect both your energy and your self-worth and honor your needs. Also, what we have to do is embrace vulnerability, and through that, we have to take chances. We have to challenge that self-doubt. And by removing or replacing, rather, those limiting self-beliefs with empowering affirmations that are true to us in the moment, we can work toward those lofty goals of affirmations. But, what we have to do is find affirmations that feel true to us in the moment, positive ones, because negative self talk is great at reaffirming how awful we are and how we are lazy and we don't get anything done. But it's so important to take and confront those and reframe that negative self talk. And through that, we start expressing the vulnerability. And that's why I invite you to share in this space, is so that you can start practicing that so you can start identifying some of the core triggers and inner wounding that you've experienced so that you can, really connect on a genuine level, and also start developing personal growth, and start taking those actions that kind of push your boundaries in a good way, right? And start moving us toward those lofty goals that we were talking about. And within that, I want to emphasize that aspect of taking action because it's so important to really start setting achievable goals that are in alignment with your passion and values, because this is a catalyst for realizing your own personal power. And remember, imperfect action is better than no action at all. That's something that often happens. People become paralyzed by all the options or the feeling that they aren't good enough. So remember, when we're getting out of our box and starting to move through the negative self-talk and start pushing our own comfortable boundaries, then we'll start experiencing different things that are like, hey, wait, do you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? And it's always good to take a moment of introspection and pause and think and again identify where you're feeling the tension in your body, because the inner critic will so often try to talk us out of doing certain things to keep us safe, to keep us small. And it uses really, really tough language. It goes for the jugular. And in that, it's going to keep you scared. It's going to keep you small. But when you set out achievable goals for yourself, go ahead and write out, all of the huge ideas that you have, but then break them down into smaller chunks that are achievable and that you can start seeing progression. You don't want to try to hit your 5-year goals when you need to start building your foundation, if that makes sense. And imperfect action can look like not having your graphics absolutely perfect, not having a website when you first get started with a coaching business or as an artist. You know, there's a lot of really successful people out there that are working purely off of social media with Instagram and stuff like that. So, maybe you don't have all of your ducks in a row, and that's okay. It will come. It comes with experience and it comes with practice. And the things that seem hard right now, you'll see in a couple months or a year or two that they don't cause. You now have new difficulties and new things that are pushing your boundaries. And those things seem like you're an old hand at it? So let me know how this all feels. And if you have any questions about introspection and how it helps with embracing your own authentic power, I'd love to, hear your experiences and stuff. I've I have experienced these in so many ways, and I practice introspection on a normal basis, like monthly around the full moon is always a great time. That way you're celebrating, but you're also releasing things that no longer serve you, right? So, yeah, that's our Monday musing for the week. This is the final week of August, and we're starting to move into full on harvest and trying to find how we can balance all of those energies from the previous couple of months. So, have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you later.